I walked into my friend's house, the familiar creak of the door a reminder that this was the same old place, the same old routine. But tonight felt different. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, something electric that made the hair on my arms stand at attention. I wasn't prepared for what awaited me in the dim light of the living room. "Hey, you're early." "Good," came a voice from the couch, slicing through the silence. I blinked, momentarily stunned. It was Emily, my friend Jake's older sister. She was barefoot, her hair swept up in a messy bun, wearing a snug tank top that accentuated her slender frame. Her glasses caught the flicker of the TV screen, casting an azure glow across her face. She didn't stand to greet me, didn't offer the casual friendliness I expected. Instead, she patted the spot beside her, a gesture both inviting and unsettling. "Are you finally going to talk to me instead of running to the basement?" she asked, her tone playful yet laced with something deeper, something that sent a jolt of uncertainty through my chest. I was Alex Monroe, 23, a barista at the local coffee shop, and on the verge of a panic attack. I had always seen Emily as just Jake's sister, a figure in the background of our reckless teenage years. But now, as I stood frozen at the threshold, I felt the weight of her gaze, the invitation in her words, and the gravity of the moment. It was as if she was daring me to step over a line I hadn't even realized existed. I hesitated, the air thick with unspoken possibilities. "Come on," she coaxed, her voice low, drawing me in. "I don't bite." Feeling the heat rise in my cheeks, I took a cautious step forward, the floorboards creaking beneath my weight. I glanced around the living room, taking in the empty beer bottles strewn across the coffee table, remnants of a Friday night that had long since faded into a blur. The TV flickered with the blue wash of a late-night talk show, a stark contrast to the palpable tension that now hung between us. I hesitated again, the distance between us feeling like an insurmountable chasm. "Where's Jake?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily shrugged, her eyes narrowing slightly behind her glasses. "Out with his friends. You know how he gets." There was a hint of something in her voice, a mixture of frustration and indifference, and I felt a familiar pang of sympathy for her. "Right?" I nodded, forcing my gaze to the floor. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You're not intruding, Alex," she said, folding her legs beneath her, her posture relaxed but her eyes sharp. "You're just early." There was a silence that stretched between us, heavy and thick, filling the air with an unspoken tension. I could feel my heart pounding, a rapid rhythm that matched the flickering light of the TV. I wanted to look away, to break the spell she seemed to cast with her presence. But I couldn't. It was as if I was stuck in a moment where everything else faded away. "Why do you always run to the basement?" she asked, her voice softening, almost inviting. I shrugged, scratching the back of my neck, trying to play it cool. "I guess it's just easier. Less pressure." "Less pressure?" she repeated, her tone teasing but probing. "Or less risk?" I met her gaze, a challenge reflected in her eyes. The air crackled with an energy I couldn't fully comprehend. "What are you talking about?" "Don't act like you don't know," she said, leaning forward slightly, her elbows resting on her knees. "You and Jake have your little hangouts, and I'm just out of the picture. I get it. I'm the older sister, not the cool friend." "It's not like that," I protested, my voice rising defensively. "You're just different." "Different how?" she asked, arching an eyebrow, the playful tone shifting into something more serious. I swallowed hard, caught off guard by the intensity of her gaze. "I mean, you're older," I stammered. "It feels weird hanging out with you." "Does it?" She leaned back, folding her arms, a playful challenge in her eyes. "We're both adults, Alex. Don't pretend there's a rule against this." Something shifted in the air, a palpable tension that felt charged with possibility. I shifted uncomfortably on the couch, the space beside her feeling both inviting and dangerous. I just don't want to make things awkward, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Awkward? She echoed, a smirk playing at the corners of her lips. Or exciting? I felt my breath hitch in my throat. I didn't say that. But you thought it? She pressed, leaning in closer, her eyes locked onto mine. Tell me you didn't feel anything when you walked in here tonight. I felt my heart race, a mix of anxiety and something I couldn't quite name. Exactly, she interrupted, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. You felt it. We both did. There was a beat of silence, a moment where the world outside faded into the background. I could hear the distant hum of the street, the faint sounds of cars passing by, but it felt like we were suspended in our own reality, a bubble of tension that could burst at any moment. Why are you doing this? I finally asked, the question hanging between us like a line drawn in the sand. Maybe I'm tired of being the older sister, she replied, her voice softer now, almost vulnerable. Maybe I want to be seen as something more. I opened my mouth to respond, but the weight of her words settled over me like a heavy blanket. The air felt thick with unspoken desires, and I knew that crossing this threshold could change everything. You know Jake wouldn't like it. Jake isn't here, she said, her eyes narrowing, a glint of defiance sparking within them. And this isn't about him. I felt a shiver run down my spine at her words. The thought of stepping over that line, of acknowledging what lay beneath the surface, sent a rush of fear through me. I don't want to lose our friendship, I said, my voice trembling slightly. Friendship? She repeated, the corner of her mouth twitching upward. Is that really all we are? Before I could finish, she leaned closer, the space between us practically disappearing. I could feel the warmth radiating from her, the heady scent of her shampoo mingling with the stale beer in the air. You're scared, Alex, she said softly, her breath brushing against my cheek. And that's okay. But don't pretend you don't want this. I could see the truth in her eyes, the challenge lingering in the air. My heart raced, a mixture of desire and fear swirling within me. I could feel the boundaries of our friendship slipping away, replaced by something new and terrifying. And just like that, I was teetering on the edge of something profound. Emily, I said, my voice barely a whisper, unsure of what I was about to say. What if? What if? She echoed, her eyes glinting with curiosity. What if we didn't overthink it? I took a deep breath, the weight of her gaze urging me to take that leap. What if we? Just then, the front door swung open, and Jake stumbled in, his laughter echoing through the house. I felt the moment shatter like glass, the connection between us fracturing under the weight of reality. Emily straightened up instantly, her expression shifting into one of casual indifference. Hey, bro, she called out, her voice bright and deceptive. You're back early. Jake turned towards us, his smile wide and carefree. I thought you'd be in the basement, man. He flopped onto the couch beside Emily, completely oblivious to the tension that had just sparked between us. I forced a smile, my heart still racing as I tried to shake off the intensity of the moment. Yeah, I thought I'd, hang out up here for a change. Good call, Jake said, grabbing a beer from the table and tossing one toward me. Let's celebrate the weekend. I caught the bottle, the clink of glass echoing in my ears as I tried to focus on Jake's jovial chatter. But my mind was still with Emily, the weight of our unfinished conversation lingering in the air, a silent promise hanging between us. As the night wore on, we laughed and joked, the camaraderie of friendship filling the space, but I couldn't shake the feeling of something unresolved. I could feel Emily's eyes on me, her gaze a reminder of the delicate balance we now walked. Eventually, the laughter faded into comfortable silence, the three of us settling into a rhythm of casual conversation. But every so often, I would catch Emily's eye, and the unspoken connection would thread between us again, a reminder of the line we had almost crossed. The night felt endless, the hours slipping away as we talked about everything and nothing. But deep down, I knew that this fragile dynamic we had created couldn't last forever. The risk of crossing that line still lingered, an uninvited guest at our table, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the clock ticked past midnight, Jake finally stretched and let out a yawn. "All right, I'm heading to bed. Don't keep me up too late, you two." "Good night," Emily and I said in unison, a playful smile dancing on her lips. Once Jake disappeared down the hallway, the atmosphere shifted again, the laughter fading into a quiet tension. Emily's eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, we were back in that suspended reality, the world outside forgotten. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft, genuine. "Yeah," I replied, though the truth felt more complicated. "Just processing." "Processing what?" she pressed, her gaze unwavering. "Everything," I admitted, the weight of my emotions spilling out before I could stop them. "This feels different, Emily. I don't want to mess it up." She nodded slowly, her expression contemplative. "I get that, but sometimes it's worth the risk, right?" "Right," I echoed, the word heavy on my tongue. There was a pause, a moment where the silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken possibilities. I could feel the tension radiating off her, the air crackling with potential. But with that potential came fear, an understanding that crossing this threshold could change everything. "Maybe we should just take a step back," I suggested, my voice barely above a whisper. "Until we figure this out." Emily's expression shifted, a flicker of disappointment passing through her eyes. "Yeah, maybe," she said softly, folding her arms as if trying to protect herself from the vulnerability of the moment. But there was something in her gaze that told me this wasn't over, that the connection we had forged was still alive, waiting for the right moment to ignite again. As I stood up to leave, I felt the weight of her gaze on me, an unspoken promise lingering in the air. "Good night, Alex," she said, her voice a gentle reminder of what we both knew lay beneath the surface. "Good night, Emily," I replied, my heart heavy with the weight of unresolved emotions. As I walked out of the house, the cool night air hit my skin, grounding me in reality. But even as I stepped into the darkness, I could still feel the warmth of her presence, the invitation that lingered in the air. And as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something complicated, something beautifully messy. The lines between us had shifted, and while fear lingered, so did the promise of possibility.